Yeah. Right. Yeah. 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 I know. I'm with you. Well, the only reason why I put them on is so I can read what I got here. I don't need them, but I can't read it. And I'll never admit that I'm getting old. No, man. No. That looks nice. I like it. I'm just proud of you. Where's my whistle at? Can he blow the whistle again? I used to do that when I was a kid, you know. They're coming. I want to thank everybody for coming back. For what it's worth, Miss Anika Melton is the Senior Claims Manager for the Division of Risk Management. She oversees the administration of the Commonwealth of Virginia Constitutional Officer and Regional Jail Risk Management Plan, which is VA Risk, as well as the Virginia Liability Risk Management Plan, which is VA Risk 2. So if you would please give her your undivided attention, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
So I will not be before you long. So our goal for today is to review for some of you and introduce to others your liability protection. We're going to discuss some hot topics, and there may be some time for a few questions. I may have questions for you. You may have questions for me. So, I didn't mean to hit that, but we're ready. So we'll start with the review/introduction, right? Who and what is DRM? So for those of you that don't know, the Division of Risk Management is a division within the Department of the Treasury, right? So we are a state agency. We are not an insurance company. We establish and we administer the risk management plan that provides your liability protection. All right, we get our statutory authority from Virginia Code Section 2.2-1839, and that established what we call VA risk. As Sheriff Milholland told you, it's the Virginia Constitutional Officer and Regional Jail Risk Management Plan. That is a mouthful if you have to say it all day, every day. So we call it VA risk. So what is VA risk? It is the risk management plan. It is not an insurance policy. It gives you liability protection. And so what does that liability protection look like? I'm going to tell you that in a minute. So that code section that I just mentioned, 2.2-1839, Section B, specific for sheriffs, provides you and your deputies with $1.5 million in protection per event as compensation for liability. But we also include the cost of defense, post-judgment interest, premiums on appeal bonds, which we don't have to do very often, but every once in a while that happens, And then plaintiff's attorney's fees that are awarded as a result of an adverse judgment when it's required by applicable federal and state statutes. So what does all of this mean, right? Your liability protection provides you and any named defendants that work for you with the eligibility to be protected. You see the ands, they're in red. So you gotta be named as a defendant. If the lawsuit doesn't name you as a defendant, there's no reason for you to even be worried. You don't need to be worried about or contacting the Division of Risk Management. So you have to be named as a defendant, and you have to be eligible for protection. And the allegations or activities or the relief sought can't be restricted. There are restrictions, and I'll talk to you about those in a minute. And all of the terms of VA risk must be complied with, including immediate notice to DRM and full cooperation with defense counsel should we assign defense counsel for you. Here's what I want you to understand, and I put this note in here because DRM assesses and reviews each claim on a case-by-case basis. And because no two claims are exactly the same, and when I say claims, that includes lawsuits. No two determinations will be exactly the same, which is why we know AI can't take my job. One piece of this, I don't have a slide for this, but this came up between yesterday and today, and so I want to talk to you guys a little bit about this because before I even get into our next slides, I want to mention service of process, and it's very important to me because, like I said, this comes up on a regular basis, but most recently, as recent as this morning. Those of you that have deputies out serving process, right? Make sure they pay attention to the documents that they're serving. So the Department of the Treasury was served yesterday, and I know, right? I got called to accept service. So I took the summons and complaint. First, he let me look through it. I looked through it. I took the summons and complaint. And then I handed it back to him so he could take his copy off the front, and then he handed the rest of the packet back to me. There was a paper clip on it. And I thought the paper clip was just holding the summons to the rest of the complaint. He had already started making his way out, and so when I pulled it apart, I realized that there was another summons and complaint attached with that paper clip that was not for the Department of the Treasury. So I said, whoa, wait a minute. Come back. I am not accepting service for this. This goes to the Attorney General's office because they were also suing the Attorney General's office. So he was like, oh, I didn't even realize that was there. So that's why I say, make sure your process servers pay attention. I've never worked in the sheriff's office. I don't know what it looked like when y'all get this stuff. I just know what it looked like when it come to me. On both sides, when it's served and when you guys send it to us because you guys have been served. So that's one scenario that happened. That happened yesterday. And then the other piece that happened this morning involved unknown deputies, and let's just throw in John Doe deputies as well, because I need your staff to not accept service for unknown deputies or John Doe deputies. We don't know who they are, and it's okay to refuse it. Now, we know there are those process servers, those private process servers that drop and run. But if you can catch them and say, hey, we're not taking this, they have to take it back to the court, and then we don't have to pay for somebody to get it quashed in the court, right? So we're saving those. So like I said, I don't have a slide for that, but I really, really wanted to interject that because it was relevant and it happened, in the past 24 hours. So when should you reach out to DRM? It says it in red. Now it says it in yellow. Immediately. No later than close of business the following workday. So when your office contacts DRM with a notice, even if it's a notice of a lawsuit, just a letter, a claim, a letter demanding compensation, funds, action, or whether it's a lawsuit, when you notify our office, it comes through, most of the time, through our DRM claims email address. There are 3 people that monitor that email address. 1 is only full-time. The rest of us just have access to peek in there when we need to. That lawsuit, claim, demand, all of those things get filtered in through me. I do a very quick initial high-level review. I'm looking for the complexity of the matter because I have a team and my team is divided up into certain subject matter areas and complexities. So if it's a wrongful death case, I'm going to manage that litigation myself. If it is a habeas matter, I have a habeas subject matter expert, and she's going to handle that. If it's moderate to complex or somewhere in between, attorney represented, I have another team member that's going to handle that. So I give that quick overview, see what it's about. I may have questions at that point, and I may call your office, I may call you directly, I may call your chief deputy, I may call somebody just to ask some questions and figure out, all right, what's going on here? What happened? What's going on? But if you don't hear from me, then it's going straight to the file handler, and then they're going to do a full and complete assessment, and they're going to take action, whether it be assigning it to an attorney, sending you a denial letter. But it is possible, and it's important that you contact us in 48 hours if you haven't heard anything. But if you haven't heard anything within that 48 hours, it is possible that we may be trying to find another path for coverage for you, and it might be taking a little bit longer than we planned. So it may be one of those things where we have to deny it. We don't really want to, but we're like, we got to find some kind of way to help them. So let's do some code section research. Let's search for Code of Virginia to see if there's any other options that could help them. Because we don't like denying. I mean, you guys work hard, right? And you should be protected, quite frankly, for practically anything you do. But as much as we would like to be able to assist you all, the plan does have restrictions that prevents us from doing so under certain circumstances. Most of the time, it's when there's other protection available, such as auto insurance, for example. Y'all don't own these cars, so your localities have the auto insurance for these. So if you send something that arises out of the use of a motor vehicle, DRM is going to send you a denial. Another point that I want to make is one denial that we had to make, and I really feel like, I don't know, John hasn't made his way back in here. John Jones, are you in here? That light is bright. Okay. Well, y'all tell him I said this.
Yeah, he's back there.
He's hiding from me. So one hiccup that we,
Third row
oh, okay.
from the back.
Hey. All right, one hiccup that we ran into, y'all, and John, you guys may need to lobby for this, is to push the General Assembly for a change so that the sheriffs are protected for challenges to state law. So if there is a suit that simply names the sheriff because they're responsible for enforcing the law, most of the time they do not seek monetary damages. They seek injunctive or declaratory relief. And an example of that case, some of you may remember the Virginia Animal Owners Alliance situation. We had to deny that, and it made no sense for you guys to have to go out and retain your own counsel, because I felt, and even some folks at the AG's office felt, because I did call over to the AG's office, they were on board with the fact that this is a constitutional challenge and you guys should be represented. The problem is they had no statutory authority to represent you. If they had the statutory authority to represent you, they would have. So the Commonwealth's attorneys have 2.2-506. I suggest somebody get started and, get them to do that, because if they're not seeking monetary damages, that's one of the restrictions that keeps us from being able to provide you with that protection. All right. So, the fun stuff. Let's get to the hot topics. Canines are a hot topic, y'all. They bite and they cause property damage. And a lot of people love them, but they cost money. They cost money. So we've had, canines do not have liability protection, but those of you that handle canines or have staff that handle the canines may be eligible, depending on the circumstances. Now, some of the examples that I gave you are a few cases. Washington versus Marks. Plaintiff was bitten by the dog. There was some possible negligence and liability. I will not say with 100% certainty that anybody was liable. The lawsuit was served. The handler was on duty. So we provided protection for that case. It went to trial, and it resulted in a defense verdict. So the deputy won. The next case, Woolner, again, it was a canine bite, but there was no liability on the part of the sheriff. So we originally denied the claim. The handler was not on duty. The lawsuit was served on the sheriff. After some negotiations, we provided limited protection to the sheriff. We assigned counsel, and the court granted the motion to dismiss, so the case was dismissed. Robinson is another case. This was a claim for damages to a car during a narcotics search. They were mad. The dog was hitting. He was scratching. He was indicating that there's something there. We denied this claim because you the one had the drugs. You get your own car fixed, to put it, frankly. But there was no liability on the part of the deputies. The handler was on duty. We denied that claim. So we sent a letter directly to that claimant saying, there's no viable claim here, and we never heard anything else from them. I want to mention a case that involves a dog. It's not a DRM case, but I read this headline last month, or may have been month before last. The headline says, "Woman got crushing injury while feeding neighbor's dog." There was a $850,000 settlement for that case. I promise you, the Division of Risk Management is not paying that kind of money to settle a dog bite case. Unfortunately, because these headlines exist and these type of precedents are set, plaintiffs read these headlines just like we do. And they think, oh, well, if they got it, then I can get something close to that, or I can get the same amount, or I might be able to get more. We're not paying it. We would take that to trial. We're not paying that. So you might feel like you don't want to take it to trial, but as a business decision, the Division of Risk Management cannot set that kind of precedent for settlement. We would have to talk about that one-on-one if you didn't want to do what I want to do. All right, y'all. Y'all not laughing with me. Okay, let me keep it moving. Moving on, off-duty assignments. So these off-duty assignments must be authorized by the sheriff, and the scope of work and rules established by the sheriff must be adhered to by the deputy. We got a couple of examples, and in both of these examples involved the use of a firearm. One was a service weapon, one was not. DRM denied both of these because we felt that there should have been indemnification by the co-defendant. So each one of these cases had a co-defendant. The sheriff's deputy was not the only defendant in this case, or the sheriff wasn't the only defendant, there was a co-defendant. So DRM felt that there should have been indemnification by the co-defendants. The co-defendants were saying, we're not paying for this, that was them. So, again, there was, both sheriffs requested reconsideration, and with some additional documentation and some concessions were made, and we provided the necessary defense for these. Let me ask you, how many of you guys have an off-duty employment request forms for your deputies to complete? That's a good number. It ain't everybody, but it's a good number. So how often do you review these forms or ask for renewals? Good job, good job. That's a good answer. That's the answer I was hoping for. I am not an attorney. I'm not going to pretend to be an attorney. But as a risk manager, I recommend at a minimum yearly. Okay. Let's see. I don't have a lot of time. I'm moving through this. How many of you have auxiliary deputies in your locality? Okay. All right. So auxiliary deputies are eligible for the same consideration as any deputy sheriff employed by your office. You done? Likewise, they are subject to the same restrictions as any deputy you employ. So those restrictions that I put up there earlier, which are not all-inclusive, by the way, that's just some of them, they are subject to those same ones. So the expectation is that they will adhere to the same criteria as any other deputy in the Commonwealth. And because I was trying to keep the slide number down, I threw FOIA litigation on the same slide. So there's no real segue for it, but we'll talk about FOIA litigation because that was one of the points of interest that I was asked to talk about. So generally, litigation arising from an alleged Freedom of Violation Act, Freedom of Information violation, it has to be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Protection will most often be available for FOIA violation cases if they are filed as a petition for writ of mandamus. So for those of you that don't know, a petition for a writ of mandamus is a petition that seeks the respondent, it seeks the court to compel the respondent to perform a purely ministerial duty. So something that you're just supposed to do anyway. They want you to comply with what they want you to do. And they say, you're supposed to do this anyway, so they want the court to tell you to do it. But those are also, like I said, reviewed on a case-by-case basis. I don't know of any that we have denied right off the top of my head. So we try to make sure that before it gets to that point, if you have a question about a FOIA request, it's okay to contact the Division of Risk Management. Again, we are not attorneys, but we can assign counsel to assist you and guide you, provide you with some advice. We're going to first make sure you've gone through all the regular channels, so don't make us the first call, not on these. We're going to ask you, have you checked out FOIA counsel? Have you called Elizabeth? What else have you done to try to figure out? And then if there's no other option, we have our consultation program in which we may be able to provide you with an attorney that can guide you through that piece of it. And then sometimes you know what you want to do, and you just need me as a sounding board. And sometimes I'll get those phone calls, and it'll just be, hey, so Ms. Milton, I got this FOIA request. I have everything that they're looking for. There's nothing that, falls under the restrictions or exclusions, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay. Well, I just wanted to let you know. Okay, thanks for calling. So that's how those phone calls go sometimes. Overall, we are here for all the crazy things. And when I say all the crazy things, I mean the sovereign citizens as well. For those of you that do not know what a sovereign citizen is, you're lucky. Because those of us that do know what a sovereign citizen is know that if you get a lawsuit, and I know this may be hard to see, but if you get a lawsuit that starts off with affidavit of truth across the top, or it says notice to the agent is notice to the principal, or they're demanding that you take them off of, add them to a do not stop list that don't exist, or, do not detain list, or if their last name is Bay, and they ask for some ridiculous amount of money with like 15 zeros behind a number, then you know that's probably a sovereign citizen. I don't even have any notes for this slide because all I can tell you is that if you get something like this, just send it to us. Because what we don't, sometimes they get it right. And what we don't want is for them to get it right that one time that you looked at it and said, oh, that's just gibberish. Because we don't want you to get a default judgment against you, not with these sovereign citizens by any means whatsoever. So send it to us. Let us, well, not me, because I'm going to do that cursory review, and then I'm going to send it to somebody else, like, here, handle this. Review this, all 45 pages of it. You look through that and see if you can find anything that's legitimate in that. Because you just never know. We have some that have been around for years, and they keep filing the same stuff over and over again. And then there's some that go away, and then they come back. And I feel like there's a time of year, like they must have a conference or something too, because there's a certain time of year when we always get bombarded with sovereign citizens cases. So I don't know if y'all hear about a sovereign citizens conference, let me know. All right. Last hot topic for the day. Other protection, excess coverage. Should you or shouldn't you secure excess coverage? The plan has all this language in there that nobody reads because it's so long and convoluted that I told my boss we got to rewrite this. So when we get a new plan, which we're trying to get signed by the governor in the next 6 months, it is going to be simplified. But currently, the plan states concerning other protection, if a protective party has any other protection that could have applied to a loss, then this plan shall not be liable for any amount collectible under such other coverage, but shall act as a coverage of last resort. Now, historically, sheriffs have not needed excess coverage. But just like everything else in the world, the cost of litigation is increasing. The cost to settle litigation is increasing, and the damages awarded by juries have increased. So you have to decide what's best for your office. Excess coverage is a double-edged sword because on one hand, it adds that extra protection and makes you feel better in case you need it. The problem is once plaintiff's attorneys find out that there's excess coverage, they amend their complaint to include a higher demand because they know there's another pot of money that they can try to pull from. So we'll simplify it like this. if, as currently written, if a VA risk plan member, sheriff, constitutional officer, has or purchases other liability protection that is in effect at the time of loss, DRM will consider other protection to be primary and the protection under VA risk to be excess. Again, we're gonna all look at those on a case-by-case basis, so if you need to call me, let's do that. But the last point that I wanna make on this is that if you're approached by an insurance company, again, DRM's not an insurance company, so we're not for profit, but if you're approached by an insurance company and what they're offering sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So if you're entertaining quotes from insurers, keep in mind that because they're for-profit, if they're offering some ridiculous amount of coverage for an extremely low price, please proceed with caution, okay? I appreciate you guys having me here, that it is currently 3:30. If we have just a couple minutes for maybe one or two questions, then I'll answer those questions, but make them easy so that I don't embarrass myself up here. Any questions, you guys? No? All right, this is my team. Yeah, so it's only 3 of us. Take a picture, save it in your phone, you'll have it with you forever and always. I am working on hiring one more person because these lawsuits just don't quit, they keep coming. But I certainly want to thank you guys for this opportunity. And if there are no other questions right now, y'all can find me in my office all the time. Because I took one vacation in 4 years. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
You can stay longer.
I can. Thank you.
Thanks again, Anika. Okay, before we get to our next speaker, this will be a ticketed event tonight for Sheriff Night, so hopefully y'all have your wristband, and if you don't, please have it, because that's the only way that you can get in it. So I'll remind you at the end of this when Mr. Byrd is done, just so we know. Okay, Mason Byrd began serving in May 2022 as Chief Deputy Director of the Virginia Department of Forensic Science after a career in law enforcement and serving as an attorney in various capacities in state government. And he's going to tell us some updates from forensic science. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to give an update from DFS. Before I get started, I would like to point out that the governor declared this week Forensic Science Week. If you saw the declaration, it also includes crime scene investigators at law enforcement agencies. The governor recognizes that forensic science starts at the crime scene, and the work that our investigators do statewide, collecting, preserving, properly documenting the evidence is integral to getting the right answer in court. So it's not only recognizing DFS, but the efforts of all law enforcement officers as well. Got a short amount of time, a lot of information. I'll be sticking around outside if you have any questions to follow up. One thing that will make a lot of folks happy that drop off evidence at the central laboratory or come to the central lab for training and who have trouble finding parking, we have a new central lab being built up in Hanover County. It's in Mechanicsville, and our folks are very happy. It's right behind Chick-fil-A. And so I think everybody dropping off evidence or coming for training will like that too. It's moving right along. It should be complete first quarter of 2026, perhaps even sooner. They're actually ahead of schedule. It's going to be a beautiful facility. There's going to be lots of training room for the law enforcement officers that come up there for breath alcohol and for the Forensic Science Academy. Want to introduce some new laboratory directors. We have 4 regional laboratories. At the Eastern Laboratory, the new lab director there is Dave Koppenhaver. He was the director at the Northern Lab. He just transferred back to Eastern. He was a forensic scientist there. Josh Kruger is the director at the Northern Laboratory now. Josh was a trace evidence supervisor in the Central Lab for about 20 years, which he fits perfectly up in Northern because Northern doesn't examine trace evidence. We send our trace from Northern down to Central or Western, so he helps answer questions up there relating to any trace evidence questions. And also because we were introducing 2 new folks, wanted to point out some of our existing lab directors in Central and Western, Scott May and Kevin Patrick. If you ever need something expedited, that you have a hot button case, these are the folks that you might want to contact. Get with them to say, hey, we've got a front burner, we need this done right away. Want to go over some of the workload statistics, what you all care about quite a bit. This is comparing fiscal year 22 to 23. You can see that controlled substances went up 13% between 22 and 23. It's a little concerning because they'd been down so low during the pandemic for a variety of reasons. You all know arrests went down. During the pandemic, we had some vacancies in controlled substances. We had 4 vacancies that we left open. No need to fill them at the time. Now that we see the numbers are going back up, we're concerned that they're going to continue rising, so we're filling those positions right now. So we want to keep the turnaround times where they are right now, which is about 30 days in controlled substances. And I'll talk about forensic biology a little bit later. You can see that across the board, all of our submissions are up. The workload stats, these are our stats for July of 2023. You can see, like I just said, controlled substances is about 30 days, and that's where we want to keep it. That's one of the hot button issues. Forensic biology, 164 days. It's about 6 months for a DNA case, the turnaround time. We prioritize those, so if it's a homicide, sexual assault, we do those first. So the 164 is an average of all the cases that we get. Once again, if you do have a hot button case, please submit that as soon as possible and let us know about it. Also, juveniles that are in custody, the statute requires that they go to court within 21 days. So if you have a juvenile in custody, make sure you put that on the RFLE, that it's a juvenile in custody. And I'd also pick up the phone and call. I'd call either the lab director or the section supervisor at least and say, this is a juvenile in custody case. We need this expedited. The agency website's been updated. We wanted to make it conducive to using your phone. So many people are using their phone now as their primary computer. We have everything on our agency website is available to review on your phone, including the manuals that we have. The evidence collection manuals are on there, so if somebody needs to review something, all of our policy notices and policy updates, changes in our policy, they're available on the website, so you can pull those up by your phone, whether you're at court or at a crime scene. One of those policy notices that we sent out recently was a notice of evidence return. I'll talk about 2 of them. We send these to the Sheriff's Association. The Sheriff's Association generally shoots them out to all the sheriffs. If you recall, we had what's known as the post-conviction project. This is the one where it's been happening over a long period of time. This is where one of our old serologists saved swatches of evidence. This was pre-DNA. And so over the years, we've tested all these cases. We went through hundreds of thousands of cases, reviewing them. The case files were at the Library of Virginia. We brought them in. Those that had DNA evidence, we kept that DNA evidence. A lot of those cases went through the court system. We think it's over now. We don't think anything else is coming from it. We've dried down the evidence that we have, and we've retained it for a while just in case something else popped up. But the practice with all of our other evidence is that we return it to the agency who's the owner of that evidence. And so now that we believe this is over with, we're going to be returning these dried down DNA samples back to the agency. So we'll return those in batches so you only get one of them. But if you do get a letter, that's what it's about, is we're returning the evidence to you. Now, how long you retain it and what you do with it, I suggest you speak to your legal advisor and make a determination of how long you need to retain it. The other policy notice, that I have to discuss that probably nobody's happy about discussing is the change. This is an annual policy notice now. It's the changes in the marijuana laws. Get your scorecard out because every year it's going to change. It's hard to follow. And so we sent out a policy notice, and to break it down, this is the support that we're giving currently for marijuana enforcement. And if you have questions about it, please meet me outside. I can flesh it out possibly further. So our statutory requirement is that we assist in criminal investigations, and we analyze criminal evidence. So under 21 years of age and possession of marijuana is a crime still in Virginia, so we accept that, we analyze that. And so remember, they changed this year the definition of marijuana to 0.3% THC or more, but also that THC now is what they call total THC. So it's all of the isomers. It's not just delta-9 THC, which is the primary psychoactive isomer that people were looking for in the past. They've now included all of them. Simple possession of more than 4 ounces, please send to us. We'll analyze those. Possession with intent to distribute as well. Likewise, at retail stores, VDAX handles a lot of the civil matters involving retail stores, but if a retail store has marijuana, if it's 0.3% THC or more, and they got a price tag on it, we call that possession with intent to distribute. So feel free to send that to us as well for analysis. We've expanded our capabilities at DFS. We were previously only able to analyze for delta-9 THC. We've have validated processes now for delta-9, delta-8, delta-6A, 10A, and delta-10. We're currently working on more of those isomers as well. So when we do get a sample and we're checking it for total THC, we can now look in plant material, vapes, and oils for all those to determine if it's over 0.3% THC for court purposes. With edibles, it's a different story. We don't have a validated process yet, but if you do have edibles that you're interested in having tested, we do have a contract with a third-party lab that will test those edibles to see if they're over 0.3% THC. The problem with that is it's $425 per sample, and it's an out-of-state laboratory. So if you do have a case where you're trying to determine what you want to test, and that's per sample, so if you have quite a few samples, please give our laboratory a call to determine the probative value of each sample and which ones we want to send off and whether you want to send it off in the long run. And we'll work with you on that. Drugs submitted to DFS in 2022, just wanted to remind you that we put out a report each year. We got some assistance from DCJS in putting this report together. I won't go into it due to time, but the website is down there on the bottom. It's broken down by court area as well as VSP area. You can pull up your locality and figure out what's going on with drugs there like you don't know already. We have a customer working group that gets together. The customer working group is made up of law enforcement officers and prosecutors. We kind of sat dormant during COVID. We got working again, and at the last meeting they said, you know what, your reports that you generate aren't the easiest for lay people to read. And I'm one of those lay people. I'm one of the non-scientists at DFS, and I agree that those reports are difficult to read. So one of the first things they said, it would be a lot easier with the latent print reports if you put the answer up front, whether it's an identification, exclusion, or inconclusive. So we've moved that information right up front. You can see that it's at the beginning, and then the rest of the information in the report that might be relevant to certain people is at the bottom of the report. So right up front, we have some easier to figure out whether this print is inclusive or an exclusion for the person. Probably not a bad idea. We're going to be taking a look at some of our other report wording as well to see if we can make it easier for everybody to understand. I mentioned forensic biology when I was talking about turnaround times, and you'll see that we've gotten a big increase in case submissions. So since 2017, we've had an increase of 34% statewide in DNA cases. If you look at the bottom there, Western has a 68% increase and Northern has a 61% increase. I mentioned the 2017 date. 2016 was when the physical evidence recovery kit statute came into effect, requiring law enforcement to send those PERC kits to DFS for analysis. We've asked for additional biologists since that time, and we haven't gotten them. We just got 2 in the recently passed budget, and we'll keep asking for more. What we do with those cases from Northern and Western to equalize the turnaround times is we send those to Central, and then we send some cases from Central to Eastern, so we move them to other labs. So you might see sometimes on a certificate of analysis the signature from the examiner who's not at Western or not at Northern, but at another lab, just to explain why you might have somebody else from a different lab. One of the reasons why our firearms, we're getting more complex firearms cases that we're examining. Many law enforcement agencies now have NIBIN capabilities, so the NIBIN is being handled by many of the local law enforcement agencies. We just wanted to point out that they're great investigative leads, but if you are going to court with a case that involves NIBIN and you want testimony at court, please send the evidence to DFS so it can be examined under a comparison microscope by one of our scientists who can qualify as an expert and provide that testimony in court. So although NIBIN leads work out, not all NIBIN cases get sent to DFS for that, but if you do need to go to court with that information, please send it to us. Likewise, because NIBIN leads are sent by the agency that's conducted the NIBIN, you might get contacted by another law enforcement agency. Previously, it was DFS that was doing all the NIBIN. Now that other law enforcement agencies are doing NIBIN, you might be contacted by another law enforcement agency that conducted the NIBIN to get some information. Toxicology update. With all the marijuana that's floating around out there, we've changed our policy. What our policy was when we first tested blood that was drawn pursuant to a search warrant or consent, we would, if it had 0.1% alcohol in it, we wouldn't do any further testing, 0.10. We thought that was good enough leeway with 0.08 that you didn't need to look for any drugs in there, that 0.10 with alcohol was sufficient. We would screen previously cases below 0.10 for drugs and alcohol. We do a screening to see if there were drugs in it. Well, what we're doing now is with all blood cases with DUI, we're screening for metabolites of THC. We want to get a handle on what's going on out there on the roads. So we will have some stats coming up relatively soon, explaining how much THC we're finding in alcohol samples above 0.10 and below 0.10. Obviously, this is only valid for blood cases. With the breath cases, we won't have any information like that. To wrap up, breath alcohol cases are, for whatever reason, they're dropping. We're not doing as many breath tests. But the good news, bad news, depending on how you look at it, is we've had the ECIR2 as our breath evidential instrument that we've been using for about 13 years. As you know, it has a dot matrix printer. It connects to us via dial-up. And so one of the problems that we're experiencing is when your dot matrix printer breaks, not many places have parts for a dot matrix printer. So we have some procurement action going on right now. We anticipate replacing all those breath alcohol instruments in 2024. I said the good news, bad news. Good news, we're getting new instruments. The bad news is every operator is going to have to be retrained on the new instrument statewide. And so we'll make that as painless as possible, and we'll provide as many classes as we can. Other than that, I'll be available outside if you have any issues, especially about marijuana and THC and what's going on in the General Assembly. I'd be happy to talk to you, or if you have any questions right now. Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to come in.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time. Next, we'll have the Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission. And to tell you a little bit about that, we got Sheriff C.O. Balderson, who's a lifelong resident of Westmoreland County, and sheriff since November 2007. And then Ms. Tina Sumter, who works at the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice and assists with coordinating the VSA program, Certified Crime Prevention Communities Program, and the Virginia Criminal History Audits. So without further ado, would you all, where's he at? Is he out wandering around? Well, can you do it without him? I'm only kidding you. Hey, so can I tell everybody to make sure you have your armband on tonight? Does everybody have their little thing that says Sheriff Knight? Good. That'll make me happy. Did you have yours? I may have a spare one if somebody might need one. Did you find him? Hot dog. That's good. Does anybody have something nice they want to talk about? Are you really? How many are opposed in this upcoming election? 2, 3, 4. May peace be with you. So Ken Stolley has left, is that right? He's back there? Ken, Sheriff, I just want to say that I love you, man, and I wish you the best, and that's the least that I can say. Well, I greatly appreciate it, but you've been an asset to the Commonwealth of Virginia and definitely to the Virginia Sheriff's Association and Institute. Thank you, my friend. Tina, you can come up and sit down until he gets here with Elizabeth. He's probably trying to figure out how to get that little bracelet thing to make the elevator work. How many people got stuck on the elevator? Yeah. CO did too. Here he comes. CO, I told him you got stuck on the elevator. And Tina agreed because she got stuck on the 4th floor. Come up, my friend. I've already announced you and told everything about you, so you can tell them the rest of the story.
Thank you, sir. Sorry for running a little bit late. I guess it was, time got by me. I didn't think it was quite 4 o'clock, but it is, so here I am. Thank you all so much for allowing us to come up today. For those who might not know me, I am CO Bartles, and I currently am a chairperson of the Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission. Today with me, I also have Tina Sumter. She's a accreditation coordinator through DCJS. And again, it's our privilege to be able to come to just give you a little bit of insight and some updates on the state accreditation program. The program started back in 1996 after about a 3-year development process through the Virginia Sheriff's Association, also the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police, and also DCJS. The Virginia Law Enforcement Professional Standards Commission, actually, it's a membership of the executive board of 12 members. You have 6 sheriffs and 6 chiefs of police. Each one of those entities appoint 6 chiefs and 6 sheriffs. The Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police does the chiefs, and of course, VSA appoints the 6 sheriffs. I would be remiss if I didn't introduce and at least acknowledge the other commissioners who are serving with me, sheriffs. I also have a list of all 12 chiefs and sheriffs at the end of the slide projection. But again, I would like to introduce the other sheriffs. We have, and if you would please stand, we have Sheriff Draper, Sheriff McLaughlin, Sheriff Staten, Sheriff Ward, and Sheriff Warren. Also, our treasurer is Sheriff Clark. He's a non-voting participant, but he is our treasurer as well. I would also ask that whomever may have been a previous commissioner, if you're here in the audience today, if you would please stand also. not seeing any other commissioners and those who are part of the commission now, I would just like to say thank you and give you a round of applause for all your service. One thing I want to ask is, why should you be accredited? The accreditation process requires an in-depth review of every aspect of an agency's organization, commitment, management, operations, and administration. It also allows our agency to continuously, not just a one-time deal or anything that you think you can just, here it is, look at it, let's move forward. No, it actually gives you an actual opportunity to continuously review the agency's resources that are being used in accord with agency's goals, objectives, and the mission. It also allows you the opportunity to reevaluate the agency's policies and procedures, especially as documented in the agency's written directive system. Now, I say this because a lot of times, again, we may just go ahead and have something on paper, may not be in paper. But as times change, and you all know how the times have changed, we need to keep continuously reevaluating so that we can move forward in this career. The opportunity to reorganize without the appearance of internal issues. Also, it provides the agency with a continuous flow of commission information that's distributed that shows exemplary policies, procedures, and projects. Helps streamline operations, providing consistency, and more important, the effective deployment of agency manpower. And it also serves as a measuring stick to the effectiveness of the agency's programs and services. Go to the next slide. So another question is, how does this affect or help your offices and your officers? Well, first, it requires policies and procedures to be in written form, available to all personnel to look at any time. Assures the agency's personnel system is in line with professional standards and is both fair and equitable. Agencies must at all times stay in compliance with the standards in order to remain accredited or to be accredited. It also enhances morale. A lot of times you hear people say, well, morale is down in the department. A lot of times, if you have an accredited agency, those individuals look back and say, hey, look, we are doing this right. We are being effective, and it also shows that the efficiency of the agency is above standard. Policies also address officer safety issues and provide for adequate training and equipment for the officers and deputies. Tina, I'll change it for you.
Agencies which meet the program standards and receive an affirmative vote of the Commission shall be accredited for a period of 4 years. The Department of Criminal Justice publishes on its website a directory of all the VSA accredited agencies. If the Commission decision is made to accredit or reaccredit a criminal justice agency with conditions, the Commission shall give the agency a period not to exceed 90 days to cope with current or anticipated events or conditions threatening or preventing compliance. The Accreditation Center will follow up with the agency and report to the Commission their findings. If the Commission is satisfied with the results, there is no further action is needed, and the with conditions is removed. If the Commission finds further action is necessary, then the Commission may grant an extension of up to 90 days, but not to exceed 6 months. How to become VSA accredited is broken into 4 steps. The first step is to submit an application with the agency information and your agency intent to become accredited. The second phase to become accredited is a self-assessment. This is where your agency reviews your files and written directives internally or conduct a mock assessment of assessors. The third step to become accredited is the on-site assessment. This is where the Accreditation Center will set up 3 assessors. The 3 assessors go to your agency, assess the agency, written directives, and files. The final step to become accredited is the Commission review. This is where the agency will go before the Commission. The Commission will review the assessor's finding to see if the agency will be accredited. Who are assessors? the assessors or employees of the accredited agencies, or retired master assessors from accredited agencies. Assessors receives ongoing training to ensure that all assessors are aware of the latest case law and code changes. Over the last couple months, the program has reviewed and evaluated the program forms, such as the process and procedures, program manual, and the assessor disclosure and standard of conduct forms. The VSA accreditation program continues to grow, and currently we have 103 accredited agencies in the Commonwealth and 33 agencies that were in the self-assessment phase. We have applied for a Department of Justice accreditation grant that will provide additional staff for the accreditation program. And we are hoping to hear something about the grant, whether we've been approved or not approved, around October the 15th of this year. If funded, the position will assist new agencies by providing them support. They will assist with developing form templates and setting up programs within available software.
Thank you, Tina. What is our mission? Our mission is to continually provide professional assistance to law enforcement agencies in the Commonwealth, have open lines of communication, provide the highest quality of training, provide guidance and advice to ensure all agencies are equally evaluated based on their mission, their goals, and their objectives. What do we know? We know that each agency is different. There's no agency that's the exact same. Each has their own challenges. They will be evaluated on their own directives as long as they comply with VSA standards. Will be assessed only on the standards and solely on their compliance with those standards. The core values are professionalism, conduct assessments with the highest integrity, equality, without partiality, to or against any agency. Consistency, uniform assistance with highly trained assessors, and innovation, encourage initiative, and foster creativity. What's going on and what's coming up? Upcoming assessments before December 31st, there are actually 16 of those. October 3rd, commission meeting. We have 8 agencies up for accreditation or reaccreditation, and our December meeting had to be moved to November 30th due to some logistical issues. And there we have, again, 8 agencies up for accreditation or reaccreditation. This year, commissioners completed and adopted a new process and procedures. That was done in June of 2023. A lot of work went into that. I actually comprised a committee of 3 sheriffs and 3 chiefs to look into this. Took a good while to get everything done. The process and procedures manual didn't need updating, but therefore we did get that done in June. Commissioners also completed and adopted an 8th edition program manual. That was done in February of 2023. Also, the VSA conference, which is the Virginia Law Enforcement Accreditation Coalition, their conference is in Charlottesville, October 2nd through the 5th, 2023. I would encourage you that if you can come out to it, you don't have to stay for the whole program, but again, our VSA meeting is held during the VSA conference, and that's on October 3rd. It's open to the public. If you like to come and look, see how the meetings run, get a feel for it, or stay for portions of the conference. I know they do charge a fee for it, but I know there is no fee for the meeting. And if you came in for a few hours just to become oriented and looking at the program, I don't think anything would be said as far as that goes. But I do encourage you, go on to the VSA community website. You'll see when we meet, and it's met quarterly every year in different locations throughout the Commonwealth. If you see that we are meeting in one of your areas closer to your area, then please come. We'd love to see you with open arms. Also at the VSA conference, the featured speaker is Tim Longo, and again, it's an excellent opportunity for training.
Between today and the end of the year, there will be an additional 17 on-site assessments that will be conducted. Over the past year, we've had several certified assessors to the VSA accreditation program. The VSA accreditation program continues to grow, and we continue to add new agencies going through the accreditation self-assessment. Therefore, the demand on our assessors is also continuing to grow.
Before you go to that one, I got one thing I want to add.
Oh, okay.
Real quick, just before Tina goes on with the support portion of that program, I do want to also add that when she was talking about the assessors previously and just now, I wanted to add that our assessors, or the assessors that do this, I would like, if you are an assessor now, if you've been a previous assessor, master assessor, senior assessor, would you please stand? We have anybody here in the audience? Got a few. Want to say thank you for everything that you've done. Round of applause for you folks as well. I say that because these folks are the boots on the ground. They go to different locations, spend 2, 3, maybe 4 days away from their agency, and not just once. A lot of times over the year, it could be a half a dozen, but these folks go out, they conduct these assessments. They are professional, experienced individuals. And again, this program, I'm telling you, the program without these assessors doing the hard work, being dedicated, committed, this program would fail. So I just want to say to each one of you here today, and to those who are assessors in any shape, form, like I say again, assessor, senior, or master, thank you for all your hard work, and it does not go unnoticed.
Thank you. So for those that was here for the Secretary's presentation and for Jackson Miller, you know how much they support the programs that you guys do in our accreditation program. So I have another program that I'm just going to give you a little overview on. So I think we have a couple more minutes. Yeah. So I'm the lead for the Certified Crime Prevention Communities program. It is developed and approved in the 1980 executive order. The initiative is to promote community safety, particularly youth and family safety on the local level. The program encourages localities to develop and implement collaborative community safety within flexible framework that is designed by the Commission. To obtain this certification, a locality meets 19 safety elements. And then there's an application certification process that includes 5 phases. The 5 phases are enrollment, application package, development, review, on-site verification, and the board review. So if anybody is interested in that program also, I'm here to answer any of those questions for it. So this is the list that Sheriff Balderson had mentioned earlier. It is the list of the 6 chiefs and the 6 sheriffs that's on the commission.
And if you ever need to contact any one of us, DCJS staff, or even the VSA staff, please feel free to do so. I know there are some contact information, especially for Tina, but you can get with me and have my information, and anything we can do for you. We'd love to see you become accredited through VSA. And again, we appreciate all of your confidence in what y'all do for us. And again, we appreciate it and thank you. If you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to try to answer them. The meeting in Charlottesville? Yes, ma'am. Where in Charlottesville and what time? I'll have to send it to you. I don't have the exact, I have the location, but I don't have it here, Vanessa, so I'll definitely make sure we get that to you, either myself or Tina.
Can you back up one slide?
I guess. I don't know which way she goes. Okay.
And if anybody else has any questions, we will be out in the lobby today, and we'll be here this evening also, if you have some questions you think of afterwards.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Sorry for being late.
You're fine, you're fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tina and CO. I appreciate it. And now, from the American Correctional Association, we have Mr. Robert L. Green, Executive Director, and Mr. Jeffrey Washington, Deputy Executive Director of the American Correctional Association, ACA. Who wants to go first?
I got it. I'm in, sir. Thank you. If you want to do any more of that incredible filler, you're welcome to it. I appreciate you. Listen, thank you. The worst thing to be at the end of the day is probably the last presenter, so I'm going to talk to you. And what you get to look at the entire time I'm here is the handsome two gentlemen there. A little bit about ACA and tell you about us. The American Correctional Association has been around and been doing this for 154 years. We're the largest correctional association in the world. We hold 2 conferences. Our next one is the Winter Conference in National Harbor. Our focus is standards and accreditation, training, professional development, and really the national perspective of what is happening in corrections, and we also do some international work. With me here today is Deputy Executive Director Jeff Washington. He and I met doing this work 35 plus years ago. I've worked 16 years for sheriffs. I spent another 18 years in local corrections. My last assignment was as Secretary of Public Safety in the state of Maryland. I made a very deliberate choice to join the American Correctional Association because I believe in the work you do every day, the work that we do, the litigious nature of it, and what we can all do together to lift each other up. We're not here in competition with anybody. We're here to simply provide you an option and talk about what we do around ACA accreditation. So as you know, there's a bill that provides you some options around CLIA accreditation, ACA accreditation, our colleagues that went before us, and again, we're simply going to talk to you about our option and what we do in accreditation. Right now, within the state of Virginia, you have 15 jails that are accredited under the American Correctional Association standards. You have 43 prisons. Your prison system in the state of Virginia is what we call a Golden Eagle state. It is fully accredited and has been for quite a period of time. With the ACA standards, I was with and had the privilege of leading the CALIA standards, NCCHC standards, and ACA standards for the 13th Sheriff's Office in the country that received the Triple Crown of accreditation. And that is also an option that is available to U.S. Sheriff's offices through the National Sheriff's Association. We have 26 manuals of accreditation. Small jails, core jail network, large jail standards. The standards are built and they're predicated upon national practices. They're performance-based standards. Performance-based standards are built around policy and procedure, but they're also built around outcomes and the performance that you create every day. They are not cookie cutter to look at getting to the same end the same way. They're looked at what is the outcome of what you do. I think it's important you understand a bit around our processes. I'm going quickly because I know you have places to be and we will be around as well. But in addition to all the things our colleagues talked about from the state of Virginia, and by the way, we work with accreditation bodies in states, again, across the country. There are many states that have what you have or have an option for professional accreditation. And sadly, ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of states in the United States that have nothing. They have nowhere to look for those national standards and how you want to build your office and quite frankly, support your people, support your community, and the outcome is about all of those things. It's about your community, it's about public safety, it's about the people that you are responsible for every day. So in that vein, I echo everything that our colleagues before us said about outcome. What's a bit different about ACA? Well, we started this in 1974. We've been doing it for quite a period of time. We work with sheriff's offices from the jail perspective all across the country in building them. We've used everything from advocacy organizations that help us put together the nuances of a performance-based standard, the sheriffs sitting in this room that have an ability to contribute to and comment on those standards when we open up the portals for comment on a yearly basis and to come and see what we do. You get assistance. You get regular and routine assistance from people that are doing the same thing that you're doing every day from across the country, within your state, and within your jurisdiction. We are, the American Correctional Association is a Virginia headquartered association and have been a lot of familiar faces in this room today. So the assistance in building your network, building your file. Accreditation is much more than a piece of paper. It's an outcome, and it becomes a process that you utilize within your organization to achieve those outcomes. And one of those outcomes is a bit of litigation protection. The American Correctional Association performance-based standards are known for their litigation outcomes. We stand behind them. We support those standards and will support you in defending them as the best practices in the country of how to operate our jails, prisons, community corrections facilities, medical operations, you name it, there's 26 manuals cover that. We provide you constant contact. We're a phone call away. And with the depth of saturation we have around the country, we can usually get a peer, a professional, a technical assistance to you very quickly should you need it. We seek to keep you up to date on the prevailing practice, what's happening in the state of Virginia, but also what's happening in the state of Maryland, what's happening in Maine, what's happening in Georgia, what's happening in Florida, and we look downstream. We look downstream of the train that's coming on the tracks. And I think as law enforcement and correctional practitioners, you all get that. Sometimes you look downstream, you see that train coming, and you need to prepare for it. We don't like to wait for a standard of practice or an outcome to be based on when the train is already there. We like to prepare for that. We're your national voice around those practices, those standards, and what's happening around the country to make sure, one, they're attainable, they're fair, they're equitable, and they lend to the greater good of helping all of us manage the work that we're doing. So in that vein, we're very proud of how we keep them up to date and how we serve those standards and practices. You get a full professional audit, peer auditors program, very similar to what you heard our colleagues talk about. Our auditors are trained. They're trained at our conferences. They're continually trained. They, again, come from all over the country, come from regions within your state, could come from Maryland, Pennsylvania, wherever. We're going to bring you the best. And wherever that is from, that's what we bring to the table. It is not a got-you process. Our processes are built around, one, teaching while we're there, being present in the moment, looking at the facility, touring the facility, seeing what you do and how you get there. And in a performance-based standard versus I would say a standard policy and procedure-based standard, again, we look at the outcomes. We look at how you achieve it. And in our language, we often talk about the four corners of the standard, that the four pieces that you are using and how you get to the outcome can be very different for many of you, but it is the outcome that matters. Again, I think it's very important that you understand that. We have an initial report that you receive. You receive that initial report, and you have the opportunity to challenge that initial report. It is comprehensive. It is by section. It is about who we talked to, what we saw, what our observations are. You work very closely with the chair of that accreditation body, or I'm sorry, that compliance body that comes on site. So you have an opportunity to see that report well in advance and challenge it. Once you agree or perhaps disagree with the findings, you prepare. We help you prepare for how you're going to defend what those findings are. We have mandatory standards and non-mandatories. In our accreditation process, you must meet 90% of the non-mandatory standards and 100% of the mandatory standards. But again, we prepare you for that hearing, and at that hearing, you get to talk about what you do and how you do it. The first question you'll be asked when you walk in the room is, tell us something about your facility leadership, the people that do the work every day that you're especially proud of. It is very much about the people. It's about what you do. And you have an opportunity to defend the report and or challenge the report. You will come before the Commission on Accreditation. It is 3 or 4 members that are sitting in those hearings, and they prepare for them for months in advance. And you know the outcome of that hearing before you leave the room. There will be a discussion that will not be a rushed discussion. It can be from 20 minutes. I've been a chairman, and sometimes those hearings have gone an hour. It's a full discussion. The vote is taken in your presence, and you know that vote when you walk out the door. And we'll walk out either with a plan to help you move forward or accreditation certificate in your hand. And while that certificate is, if you will, the end of the journey, it's the journey that counts. and it's the next steps that count. It's a 3-year process. During that process, as part of your contract, you also get what's called a performance monitoring visit. The performance monitoring visit is we're going to come out again, and we're going to help you stay on track. We're going to check, make sure you are staying on track, not as a gotcha process, but to help you get there. If there's something that's falling out of compliance, we want to hear about it. If you have challenges, we want to know about it in advance so we can help you meet those challenges and get to where you want to be. It's a continuous quality improvement process, and that's what we focus on. That 3-year cycle, again, that's built into it. We'll come back in 3 years, and you go through the reaccreditation process again. That's what we do. And who we are is an organization of great credibility, and we're here to help. I took over as executive director of the American Correctional Association, privileged to work with my friend Jeff Washington. Started the transition 6 months ago. It is what I built my career on. That's not an infomercial, that's a fact. That if I did not have that body of work to help me explain to young people that are coming into our institutions why we do what we do every day, it is clear, it is succinct, it is measurable, and it's reasonable. You know, and things that we may sometimes take for granted, like every day, checking a set of handcuffs, that's a standard, making sure they work. Those of you in this room that ever had a broken set, when did you find out? When you went to use them, right? Making sure keys are there and available. Making sure all of the things you need to do your job are in track and they're built into how an institution flows. That's what our standards do. They talk about all the people involved in the process. Our medical standards are not built just upon the clinical practice. They're built upon everyone that has to play a role in providing medical care to an individual that's incarcerated, to include the individuals that get them from point A to point B and deliver the initial service at the point of contact. I'm very proud of what we do. And again, I say it with great pride. We're not here to compete with anybody. We're here to help everybody. If there's anything I can do in our organization to help the group that came before us or every other accrediting body, we're going to do that. But at the end of the day, these processes help us tell our story. Mr. Washington and I are going to be here. We'll be here this evening. Happy to join you. Thank you for inviting us. We'll be around. You've looked at those faces for 15 minutes. Can't miss them. So we're available to talk to you. If you had a burning question now, happy to answer it tonight or perhaps tomorrow morning before we depart. And we'll leave some cards and have a really quick QR scan on our phone that if you want to contact us, we'll get you all the answers. We just want to see you succeed. Any questions for me? It's dinner time and you're about done. Thank you all very much. Have a great evening.
No more jokes. Besides standing in front, me and dinner, I don't want to stand in front of you and leaving. So, but as you can see up here, everybody should have one of these if you're going to Sheriff Night. And please do me a favor and do that. And I gotta do this because John told me that I had to do it. So I have to tell you everything about Sheriff Night. It is at the Ocean Pool and Island Lawn, which is out that way. Weather back up, we don't have to worry about that. It's a beautiful day. It's sponsored by Blue Line Solutions, Mosley Architects. How many people hit that golf ball? That was pretty cool. Summit Correctional Services and the Virginia chapter of the FBI National Academy Associates. So thank them. If you see them out there tonight, say thanks. Take your bracelet because that's the only way you're going to get in, and have fun. I'll see you down there. Is that all right? Hey, my pleasure.
We're all playing the same game.